Welcome to News with a View, hosted by me, John A. Costa. Today is December 10th, 2025, episode 169. I apologize for not being online since probably December 4th, but matters that had to be taken care of got in the way of this broadcast and podcast. All right, the news continues. Fraud, unbelievable. A couple of big frauds out there going on. Big one. Of course, Crockett, not Davy Crockett, Jasmine Crockett. Interesting, both from Texas, though. Has thrown her hat in the ring for a Senate seat. And Bruce Blackman out of New York is going to run as a Republican against Hochul. So, what we're going to talk about today is more of the Minnesota fraud. That there's just more and more stuff coming out, and there's just no way for Walz to Doge. I said before that Doge is going to come back, and it's going to come back strong. My belief that it will be after the midterms, that Doge will reappear with Elon Musk taking an overview when the dust settles and the Democrats lose yet again. That is when Trump is going to go after the meat down to the bone. But Minnesota fraud case turning up more cases. Not only money fraud, but immigration and visa fraud. Tim Walz and the squad, his squad, are still denying they have any connections to the event, but even some Democrats are now keeping them at arm's distance. So, Senator Omar, who is being focused on by the Department of Justice, had kept a very low profile other than playing the race card and immigration card. Her husband, who runs a venture capital business, is also being looked at, I would suspect. Seeing how the funding and seeing how money was used, and just shaking the tree. See what's going to fall out. Walz has been accused by some state employees of turning a blind eye to the fraud brought to his administration's attention up to 18 months ago. The employees also had stated that employees who spoke out about the fraud were targeted by the Walz administration for retribution, and that they also went to the DNC and local media with their allegations when Walz was being considered for the VP spot. So these employees, state employees, had brought the fraud to the attention, or at least what looked like fraud to the attention of the Walz administration. Whether or not it ever reached Tim Walz, who knows? But I believe it did. Minnesota House Speaker Lisa DeMuth, a Republican, of course, said the federal investigation into what prosecutors allege is the largest COVID-19 fraud in the nation shows the problem is widespread and reflects failures under Governor Tim Walz. Now, what people are saying in this is that the fraud was actually extremely easy to detect and was detected. But was buried because of the color of the fraudsters and the ethnic background of the defendants. Now, there have been people brought already to justice on this. They have known the fraud has been going on, and they've brought people to justice, and now in that whole process, they have discovered layer upon layer upon layer of fraud. And this usually does happen in cases like this, that there's tentacles. You know, and then you go out and you find more and more and more. And this has been the case. Media reports saying that the fraud could be in the billions and that some of the money stolen was sent to terrorist groups in Somalia. Now that will be interesting because basically they have these money centers, and you got to remember a lot of these Islamic countries don't use what we would call traditional banking because charging interest and things like that are not allowed under Islamic law. So they have other ways to get around that. They have fees and procurements and, they make money. And these money centers can wire money and do wire money to these little outfits there that then hand out cash, but there's a fee. Now, anything exiting the United States, as far as, in this case, money going out of those cash centers, will be monitored. It's easy enough to find out where it goes, but a lot of it gets real tricky because what they do is they wire it to like a neutral third party. You know, they'll send it to France. And then from France, that guy over there sends it this way. And then that guy sends it to where it needs to get. But in the meantime, it gets lost in translation. And they use countries that also have a weak banking system and security. And a lot goes through Africa and out. And everyone gets a piece of that action. So it's going to be tough to follow the money, but they'll be able to follow it. They'll be able to follow it, and have. A lot of these people that have been convicted and been accused have also had lavish lifestyles, with no visible source of income. Now, what happened in Minnesota, and you could call it political. You could say, hey, we're going to look into Tim Walz. The guy that kept saying, well, I'm transparent, I'm this, I'm that. Well, this is what happens when you lose a race nowadays. You're going to be investigated. Politics has always been personal. It's always been hard and dirty. And we can see, from every election, how nasty things can get. So in this case, in Minnesota, the fraud was committed by members of the Somalian community doctors, and others who falsely labeled children with disabilities, which made the family eligible for government assistance and COVID-19 funds. The main disability was autism, which at a worst case in America, one out of 100 children have some spectrum level under today's model. In Minnesota, that number was almost like 100 times the national average. And in Minnesota, it was 1 out of 3 children in that community. In that Somalian community. The fraud took in EBT, SNAP, WIC, welfare, Medicaid, housing and education, and probably Social Security, disability, and everything along those lines on the Medicaid. Now, this is just one state where this has been going on. Just one peel of the onion. What do you think they're going to find in other states? And I'm not just saying blue states. Other states. What do you think you're going to find? I'm sure they're looking in Ohio, in Illinois. They'd love to look in California. But what do you think these blue states are doing? They refuse to send data to the government for examination. Even though they're collecting money from the federal government, they refuse to back up the source for asking for it. So you're saying I need, $800 million to take care of this, and the government goes, all right, we'll approve that. Can you show us where you're using this money? No, we refuse to give you that information. And like in the state of Kentucky, which is a red state, they gave the information, and lo and behold, guess what happened? They found thousands of cases of fraud. And that's a red state. I'm not saying, every red state is, we're pristine. No, this is money. Red and blue don't matter when green is involved. All right? Money transcends politics. At the end of the day, every state doesn't want to leave any money on the table. They want it all. And the people that go, I'll get you it all. But guess what? I get a taste of that. Remember the big guy? Got to get his cut. And that's politics. That's not blue politics or red. That's just politics. It's just that when you come on the stage and go, I'm this and I'm that and my state and we run it like that, and then you find out that everything's a lie, that this, and if Tim Walz didn't know what was going on with it, and with the fraud and, the accusations and everything else, and oh my God, that's even worse. If he turned a blind eye to it, if he turned a blind eye to it, that's one thing. But his administration has been accused of going after people that reported this. There was retribution alleged by the employees of the state, Health and Human Services, where they said, hey, yeah, this doesn't seem right. This data does not correlate to the normal standards that, we see around the country. And this was just ripe for the picking. This government money was low-hanging fruit. And we saw that in Washington State, where they used COVID money for anything but COVID. It was for housing of illegals. It was for used for everything but what it was originally for. Now, those governments said, well, we just took it and threw it all into one bucket and then dispersed it. Well, that's not the way it was supposed to work. And under the Biden administration, it was even worse. I did not like even what Trump did when he was, they bailing out the businesses, and you had to apply to a bank, and you only had 3 days to do it. And guess who got the bulk of that money? The people that owed those banks the most money, that were at risk of going southbound on those loans. Where the average guy that was making his payroll and paying his bills, but now this is all stopping and needed money to keep going, he was shut out because, the $500 million company was getting their payrolls taken care of, and the money was out. That's it. The banks weren't interested in saving the mom and pop stores that had no real debt to speak of to the bank. It was the big companies that, were at risk, and we lose that money, our bank goes down. We don't have enough capital to cover the losses. So I did not like how the Trump administration handled that. And I didn't have a podcast then. But to my elected officials, I was making that very aware to them, that this ain't right. So this was, this fraud was not really statewide. It was very localized. And people go, oh, you can't condemn, all the people involved. Well, you can condemn a lot of them. Because if 1 out of 3 Somalian children have these afflictions, then there's something wrong with those people. And then maybe it needs to be looked at. But I doubt it. And who were making these? Was it the same, 20 doctors, 30 doctors, or group practices that were making these diagnoses? And taking the money that should be used for COVID? I find it very strange. And I find that the fraud that was out there, and we all knew it. How could it not be? Biden was throwing money out there like crazy. He was throwing money out there. And how is this getting into the right people's hands? Who's looking at that? No one's looking at it. And if it was going to the right people's hands for the right reasons, all right, I can get there. But no one was questioning that. And in this case, no one was questioning it because, oh, they're black. Oh, they're Somalian. Oh, they're immigrants. Can't do that. This is a fraud that's been going on for quite a time. Party's over, and we'll never see a tenth of that money back. That money's gone. The people that they have captured, the property isn't worth what they said it was, and the cars and everything, it's not being sold. Assets can be sold. It'll be sold pennies on the dollar. We'll never see that money. That just won't happen. But what we will do, we'll dismantle the Democrats that are involved with it and Republicans that are involved with it. I'm all for that. I don't care. You're Republican. I don't care if they're Democrat. You committed a fraud on that type of level, you're going to have to answer to it. Just like Letitia James has to answer to her falsifying records. Because really that's what it is. And in her case, I believe it was absolute fraud. I think in Comey's case, he lied not only to government officials, but he lied to federal agents. And if he didn't lie to them, he misled them. Which is also a crime, just so you know, when you're dealing with federal agents. In the case of Adam Schiff, I'm not so sure. Not so sure. Now, Letitia James, I think a grand jury now has failed to indict her again. But that doesn't mean, that's just one leg of it. They'll get it. They'll get it there. But you can only go to the grand jury maybe 2 times before it becomes a problem. You could do 3 and 4 times, but if you're presenting the same information and hoping for a different result, and then getting that different result, and 3 other grand juries said, no, there's nothing there to it. We don't see that as the way you're presenting it. So if it's presented differently, but the facts are still relevant and the same, then you got a case. But if they're shuffling stuff around, then that's legal mumbo jumbo, and I got a problem with that, because they could do it there, they can do it to me. Just saying. I think she committed fraud. From everything I have seen on it. I've seen the Comey and McBride, I think it's McBride, who said something different. So, which one of you guys are lying here? We got to get to the truth. And again with Schiff, I said, and people go, no, he lied, he did this, and I think there is reasoning with him. I don't like him. I don't like his politics. I think he stinks. I think he's shifty, but I'm willing to go out a little bit further on Adam Schiff than I am any of these people. So, what is the second big fraud of the day? Let's see what the other big fraud of the day is. And I'm looking at my YouTube feed here. Biden-era SBA, Small Business Administration fraud. Senator Joni Ernst of Republican Iowa and the Daily Wire investigative reporter Luke Rozak were on Fox and Friends to weigh in on the alleged fraud and abuse of Biden-era Small Business Administration DEI programs. It is alleged that up to $500 million in fraud took place by contractors and subcontractors, and that all funding should be halted to the Small Business Administration till an investigation is concluded, or at least looked at. Now, this goes back to my original thing about loans and bailouts, and DEI was terrible. It wasn't a law. There was no law that said DEI. These were parameters put on by government agencies that no one ever voted on. This was not law. But if you wanted a government loan, well, you had so many men in skirts, you had to have so many women with crew cuts, you had to have so many people with pins through their noses, you had to have so many gay people and lesbians and black people and people of color and races, or you didn't get the loan. Guess what that's called, folks? That's called discrimination. So, more Biden-era stuff coming out. It will take years, if ever. If ever. There's only 3 years left of this going after Biden. Only 3 years left. Once Vance is president, that's gone. And when Vance isn't the president or doesn't get elected, then it will all be Donald Trump they'll look at. So I mean, we know how this is played. We know how it's going to go forward. I mean, if laws were violated, laws were violated. Some things coming out in the news now is of course, a lot of talk on the 14th Amendment. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be jurisdiction and sovereignty. People aren't going to like it. And I said that from day one. It's going to be close, but I think the justices are going to allow Donald Trump's interpretation. Now, that's an executive order. What can happen with the next president? He can revoke that executive order, but since the Supreme Court has upheld what that executive order is saying, it's going to be tough. It would have to go back to the Supreme Court for another look at. And I guarantee you they won't look at it. They'll say, we've already decided this. See us in 50 years. We'll discuss it in 50 years. And I think the case that the 14th Amendment hinged on in the modern world, which I think took place in the 1910s, and it was against a Chinese man that was born of immigrants here of Chinese descent. He went out of the country and then got caught up in the 1898 law of prohibiting Chinese immigrants just from coming over, putting their big toes, on the ground. But this individual was already born here and was returning after a visit to China. And a lot of different groundworks in there because of the word jurisdiction and the real term of sovereignty. And I said that I'm not a lawyer. I am well read on the Constitution, mostly the 14th Amendment, because to me, the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, very, very important, except the 10th Amendment, which was really lousily, hurriedly shoved through, which causes a lot of problems and will cause a lot of problems. And that's the next one that needs to be really torn into. The 14th Amendment, huge. And my feeling is read the 14th Amendment, but understand every word in there has its own meaning pertaining to the intent of the 14th Amendment. I remember I have said this many times in my podcast. What you and I call is and it is different than what is used as is and it when it comes to a legal definition inside the context of law. So it's very wordy. And the Supreme Court does not make laws. It will answer the question on whether or not the law meets the constitutional definition of being allowed. And is it protected under federal law or protected under state law? Because remember, whatever doesn't happen inside the United States Constitution becomes fair ground for states. As long as that doesn't impact the Constitution. Remember, rights flow down. They flow down from the federal level down. But that pesky 10th Amendment does get in the way. All right. Enough about that. I don't know what seemed to have changed on my... I used to be able to see how long I've been talking for, and now I don't see it for some other reason. Whatever. I'll figure it out eventually. All right. The other big... Jasmine Crockett launches Senate bid. So she would like to run for Senate. It's not that she's running for Senate. It's a primary. There's going to be other people running against her. Crockett, speaking at an event on Monday in Dallas, said she was confident in being able to win a statewide race in Texas as a Democrat and wanting to take on President Donald Trump as a U.S. Senator. That is her ambition, to take on President Trump. Not represent her state, but to take on Donald Trump. I'm here to tell you, Donald Trump, you won't get rid of me that easily. I'm not going away. I'm not giving up. I still believe in this country. I still believe that we are in the land of opportunity, she said. So, she said, you can't get rid of me. I'm here. And I'm going to take you on. You're a representative. Ms. Crockett. And you represent the people in your district, not the state, but your district. And now you want to have the control to go after Donald Trump as a senator. Now, in a prior statement that she had made, I think in 2024, after Donald Trump won the election, Crockett had said that Hispanic voters had a slave mentality, and that's why they voted for Trump. She made that comment to Vanity Fair in 2024 when she compared Latinos who voted for President Trump to slaves who would hate themselves. Now, she said that. But she told CNN Jake Tapper, when he reminded her of that comment, that that isn't what she meant. She denied believing that Hispanic voters had a slave mentality when questioned. And he had to remind her, hey, but this is what you said. So she is getting the attention in the national media. She got it because she's outrageous. I do. You said what? And then she takes on the black. She's a very sophisticated speaker. But they all take on this, persona of, no, she didn't. You don't have to do that. I don't like when black people are portrayed as all being minstrels and performers, and they must, oh, look at them dance. A rapper. They're not. That is a horrible stereotype to place them in. Now, you have wonderful dancers, you have wonderful comedians, you have wonderful rappers, but that's their profession. All right. So Crockett is now getting the attention that all the words that you used in the past are going to come back to you. Now, she's an educated person. But when you get hit with 4 or 5, 6 of these type of questions in a row, and you have to start backtracking everything you said and then quantify what you said and then stand behind what you said, she's doomed. She's doomed. And she will then get frustrated and go, this is about me being black. This is about me representing the black community and Hispanic. This is about being black. I guarantee you she will throw that card out because she'll have no place else to go. No place else to go. And it's also my belief, Texas voters will not vote to rise Crockett to the U.S. Senate. But the DNC is again failing to see that this race gives all citizens of America a view that the Democratic Party is willing to go further left than before and propelling what I call Democratic stars. Oh, we hate Donald Trump. Why? Oh, because he's orange. Look at what he's done. Well, what has he done? Tell me exactly what he's done that has hurt America, that you would hate him. I can't. Who use rhetoric rather than accomplishing moderate democratic policy goal agendas. They're willing to push these people, loudmouths. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump was not a loudmouth or is not a loudmouth. The difference is he knows what he's talking about. And he puts it out there to 80% of the people to go and understand it. And this is what frustrates the Democrats, is that in a few select words, he gets the people, he grabs them, and they stay held. And the Democrats hate that. Can't stand it. Can't stand it. Bruce Blackman announces a run for New York governor. Now, he is the executive of Nassau County, Long Island, a Republican stronghold, Democrat stronghold, too. It's a very interesting community. But he has now officially entered the race for New York governor. The Nassau County executive formally launched his 2026 campaign in a video message on Tuesday morning. I want to replicate what we did in Nassau County. We made Nassau County the safest county in America. The poverty rate is the lowest in all of New York State. Blackman added in the morning interview on Fox local station, which is Fox 5. I haven't raised taxes a penny in 4 years. Now, his entrance into the race now becomes a primary challenge against upstate Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, a rising figure in the Republican Party and a major supporter of President Trump. But whoever earns the GOP nomination is going against the incumbent, Governor Kathy Hochul, who is seeking re-election to a second full term. I don't think she's going to be re-elected. I think I feel that any Republican of substance, either one of these people could defeat her. Probably a little bit easier for the congressman or congressperson to go out there than Nassau County, because it's hard for Nassau County to relate to upstate. Remember, New York's a big state, big state. But 80% of that money comes from downstate, New York, Long Island. New York City generates probably about 2/3 of the revenue for New York State. If they can carry Long Island, if they can carry Westchester, Putnam County, Rochester, Syracuse, and Binghamton, they win the race. But if you can't carry them all like that, it's going to be a close race. Now, last race, Hochul only won by a few percentage points from a relative unknown from Long Island. I think I think both these people, Blakeman and Stefanik, stand a good chance. I think these are both seasoned people, and nothing's going to foul them up. Hochul has so much stuff that she has done incorrectly and, just badly, that she's going to have a hard time defending herself. She can, her only real hope is to really go downstate and convince Long Islanders and people in Westchester and Putnam, Yonkers, to really, vote for her. I just don't see that happening. If there was a contest today, given 30 days of these people going out there and campaigning, she'd lose. She'd lose in a heartbeat. She'd lose. Wait till Mondani is governor and all the money that he's going to be asking for, and the help of New York State, and all the money that she's been giving away catches up. It's going to catch up. They were all hoping for a Democratic win in the White House, or at least in Congress's. The Democrats are so dead in the water that the reality just still hasn't set in. It has for Schumer. It has for Schumer. It has for a lot of Democrats and some Republicans who said, I'm out of here. Schumer hasn't done that yet, but he might. I don't think so. I think he wants to take on AOC and really beat her up bad. Because, no one liked AOC. Pelosi didn't like AOC. She had to straighten her out and get her. This is the way it's done. You're not speaker. You don't do this. You don't step out of line. But because of the craziness of the Democrats, they allowed the squad. They allowed these people to step out into the spotlight, push the moderates. And Pelosi was no moderate. And Schumer was kind of a moderate for a while, and then realized, I got to protect my phony baloney job here. But I think come the first of the year and the ads start coming out and people really start gearing up for the election, the Democrats are going to be in trouble. They are in trouble. And I couldn't be happier. All right, I'm going to end this because there's a lot of stuff I got to do today. I've been on for almost an hour. All right, give to a charity if you can. Charity does begin at home, I understand. I got to understand people being reluctant to give to a charity. Give to a food bank. Food banks not only need food, and they welcome that. Of course, some new food, unexpired. But they could also use monetary money. They could use monetary funds because they know exactly where that money needs to go to immediately, mostly this time of year. But always, always say a prayer. Prayer does work, no matter what a Democrat tells you. And with that, I'm going to say good night. As I fade to